be talking and demonstrating today the Fincke method of dilution, and we will specifically be talking about it as it pertains to autopathic preparations, but we will at the end of the video talk about how to use it to increase the potency of a homeopathic remedy as well. This video is for practitioners and is for educational purposes only. It is not intended for people to try this at home without the supervision of a qualified homeopath. We will try to give as much detail as possible, and this is a fairly new application of Fincke's method to autopathy, even though the current method of autopathy, of making autopathic preparations using an autopathy bottle, does use Fincke's method of dilution, but it is been engineered in a very specific way. So this is a very generic way of using Fincke's method to make autopathic preparations. And so this being new is something that some homeopaths are experimenting with, but it is not a clearly finished method. And so this is experimentation. And so I'm demonstrating for other homeopaths what I have been working with and how I am trying the Fincke method. And so this is just something that other homeopaths can look at and decide for themselves if they want to use some of it or modify it or come up with new ideas. So the main things that we're going to need are a small glass vial, and this is 10 milliliters, but anywhere from 10 milliliters to 30 milliliters works well. Or if you don't have a glass vial, you can use a small juice glass, but you have to make some adjustments to amounts and stream of tap water and things to get this to work out. So I'm going to be demonstrating and talking about using a small glass vial because this is the way that I have been doing it. So for autopathic preparations, we use samples from the so-called patient's or client's own body, whether it be their breath or their saliva or their prana, or even this method can be used for isopathic preparations, using urine, for example. But we're going to be talking today about homeopathic, or rather autopathic preparations. So we'll be focusing on breath, saliva, and prana. So the way that I have been doing it, in order to make a breath preparation, I will put a bit of distilled water into a very well-cleaned juice glass, and then just use a straw and put the straw into the water and blow into it. And you want to blow the entire lung's worth of breath because it's the air at the bottom of the lungs that has the most important information. Then once you have aerated with your breath this little bit of distilled water, then you will pour it into the vial and proceed from there. If you're going to be using saliva, then what I will do is put a little bit of distilled water in the glass, take a sip, and then swish it around in my mouth for 20 or 30 seconds, and give a very little quick gargle just to get the back of the throat, but you don't want to infuse a bunch of breath into this if you just want a saliva solution. And it's best to use the first morning saliva before brushing your teeth or eating or drinking anything, but you can use saliva throughout the day if needed. Just don't have eaten or having eaten or drank anything for at least an hour or 2 hours prior, and you want your teeth to be clean. You don't want a bunch of food or whatever it is you've been eating or drinking in this preparation of the specimen. So then the third option is prana, or energy, or chi, or whatever you want to call it. And the way that I do that is I fill the vial with distilled water, and then I will hold the vial horizontally 2 inches over the 7th chakra for about 3 minutes, and then use that for the Fincke dilution. So let's look at the actual process a little bit closer. And I will be using saliva for this method. So for this preparation, we will be using a little bit of saliva preparation, which was some distilled water that I swished in my mouth, and one quick gargle just to get the saliva in the distilled water. This is first morning without brushing teeth or eating or drinking anything. And the vial has a little plastic stopper, and you want to take that out and put it in the lid. And then you want to pour a little bit of the saliva into there. About a third of the vial should be saliva preparation. And then what we want to do is we want to use Everclear for trituration. Now, what is trituration? Trituration means that when preparing a homeopathic remedy, if the original substance is not dissolvable, then it is mixed with milk, sugar, and ground in a mortar and pestle in a prescribed way, and then a little bit of that is removed and put into a mortar and pestle and ground with some more milk sugar, and then a little of that is removed and put into a mortar and a pestle used to grind. That, again, in this process is called trituration. It's kind of the releasing of the information within the original substance. Now, with an original substance that is dissolvable, it is dissolved in 95% grain alcohol, which is ethyl alcohol. And this method of steeping is how we triturate dissolvable substances. And the reason trituration is important is because that is part of the process of releasing the energy information that is in the substance that will ultimately become a remedy or a preparation. So now that I have some of the saliva sample in the vial, I'm going to fill the vial the rest of the way with Everclear, and I've put it into this small bottle just to make it easier. And so then we will fill the rest of the bottle with Everclear. And this is a little bit of a slow process using the dropper, but just pouring it straight in makes such a mess that I prefer to just go ahead and use the dropper, even though it does take a long time. And if you're using a 30 milliliter vial, it's going to take much, much longer. But it's really not that long. So you don't want it to be all the way full to the top because you want to be able to succuss this later on. And if it's too full, you won't be able to succuss it very well. So now that it's mostly full, but there's a little bit of room at the top, we want to shake it up to mix the saliva with the Everclear. And now we want to do the trituration process. So what we're going to do is in order to keep the sample unadulterated, we're going to wrap it in foil and let it sit for an hour. Now, I personally, anytime I'm preparing a remedy or a preparation, I turn off my cell phone and my Wi-Fi router, and I make sure that the air in the house or the room is clean, and I haven't just been cooking liver and onions or something. You want to make this in a way that is as pure as possible with as few outside influences as possible. So we will let this sit for an hour to triturate, and we will do just one trituration, but I'll show you. Well, actually, you know what? Let's do 2 triturations maybe just so that you see how to do it. But normally you may do just 1 trituration, but we will be back in an hour. So now that this has been steeping for 1 hour, we'll give it another little shake. And if you're only going to do this original specimen, original sample, and not do further trituration, then you would just proceed with the Fincke dilution from here. But let's demonstrate how to triturate this. So first, what we will do is we will succuss this. Succussion means that you hold it in your hand with a little bit showing, and you strike it against the book firmly for a prescribed number of times. Usually that can be anywhere from 10 to 100 times, and the more times that you succuss it, the stronger the potency, or the stronger the effect, the deeper reaching the preparation will be. So be careful not to succuss too many times. Frequently 10 succussions is sufficient, but sometimes if you want to go really deep, you might go as high as 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. And sometimes some people go even as high as 100. So if we're not going to be triturating, then we would just use this preparation having succussed it 10 times, or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, however many times you want to succuss it. And we would proceed with the Fincke dilution with this specimen. But I'm going to show you how to triturate it further if you want to do that. So to triturate it further, you would pour out a good portion of it such that there's only a third of the solution remaining. Remember, this has been succussed. Then we would fill it again with Everclear, the same process as before. And again, it takes a while. And I always do these preparations on a towel because you do make a bit of a mess. And so now we have a specimen that has been further triturated. So we shake it, and then we would wrap it in foil and let it sit for an hour again. And then after that hour has passed, if we don't want any further trituration, we would unwrap it, shake it, and we would succuss it one more time. So if you wanted to succuss it 10 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now then, this is a further triturated preparation that is ready for Fincke dilution. But again, you don't have to do further trituration from the original specimen. This is just a more advanced method of making a deeper acting, more powerful preparation. And you definitely don't want to do this at home without the supervision of a qualified homeopath. But you don't want to be doing any of this that I'm talking about at home without the supervision of a qualified homeopath. So now let's proceed to the actual dilution process. So now we're at a sink to do the Fincke dilution. And you'll see that I've put a yardstick across the sink to hold the vial so that I don't have to stand there and hold it myself the whole time. It's important that the area of the sink be free of strong odors of any kind. So you don't want any kind of air fresheners, and that's true for the entire process. You don't want any air fresheners or any strong odors in the room while making the preparation. And you also want the sink to be as clean as possible. But don't just spray it down with Lysol and wipe it down and then have that Lysol smell. You'll have to wait until it has been aired out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be placing the vial under a stream of water, and the strength of the stream depends on the size of the container. So let me get a stream going and get the vial placed, and then we'll talk more about that. So let's start a stream. And for a small vial like this little bit of stream is good. And so we want to then place the vial directly under the stream of water such that the stream is hitting the center of the opening. And you want to be able to look into the vial and see there's a considerable amount of agitation within the vial. If you're using a bigger container, then you'll need a stronger stream. For instance, if I were using that juice glass that I used to prepare the saliva specimen, then you would need a much stronger stream in order to get the appropriate amount of agitation. Now, you will have to make adjustments to the placement of the vial because it will move a little bit and you want the stream staying right in the middle. It's important that you wear clean, new rubber gloves while making this because you're going to be touching the preparation that is spilling out of the vial, and so you will be dosed with this preparation through the skin of your hands. So if you're touching it without gloves, you're being dosed. And if this is going to be sitting under the stream for 1 to 8 hours, you're going to be touching it a lot. And you're going to end up getting a huge dose of the preparation if you're not wearing gloves. Now, I'm not wearing gloves at the moment, but actually, I guess I will put on gloves. So I'll be right back. so now I have this autopathic preparation of saliva that has been diluted using the Fincke method. And actually, it's more than just dilution. It's actually potentization, because the Fincke method, the stream creates a tremendous amount of agitation within the chamber or the vial. And this is called flux dilution or fluxion. And so not only is it diluting, but it is also agitating, which is similar to succussing during the preparation or potentization process. So actually the Fincke method is diluting and succussing, or we could say potentizing. So let's say that I left this under the stream on the faucet for 12 minutes. So this would then be a 1M preparation. And so now what we're going to do is preserve it and make it usable for the client. So what we want to do is pour out the majority of this and leave just a little bit left in the bottom, about 1/5 of the vial. And then we will fill it the rest of the way with Everclear. And this is going to take a while because I'm filling 4/5 of the vial. Now from this particular final or end result or end product, autopathic preparations should not be taken internally. So they should not take it by mouth. However, this could be likened to the Korsakoff method in a sense. And so what Korsakoff did is that he, during, I think it was World War I, or I don't remember which war it was, he had the soldiers take a sample of their saliva or take a drink of water out of their canteen, swish it around and spit it back into their canteen, succuss the canteen, dump it out, dump out most of it, refill it with water, succuss it, and repeat that process, and then just drink from it. And that kept the Russian army healthy while the other opposing army fell sick. And so some people have used this Fincke preparation and taken it internally, for instances of acute illness. But typically with autopathy or autopathic preparations, we will apply this to the forehead over the area of the 6th chakra. Now this, because it has 4/5 Everclear alcohol, it can also be taken through olfaction, meaning that you can just, well, let's finish preparing it. So now that it's prepared, we would succuss it one more time. However many succussions you want, just to activate the 2 alcohol with the diluted or potentized specimen. So now this is ready for administration. So for olfaction, you would simply remove the cap and put it under the nose and smell it. Take deep breaths through your nose to smell it. And because it's Everclear, you'll get a really good dose of the preparation through olfaction just by smelling the open vial. Or The other way is transdermally, by opening the vial, putting a couple drops on your hand, and then rubbing that solution on the sixth chakra, on the forehead, on the skin. And so now this preparation is good for a long time. But with autopathic preparations, or with this kind of a preparation, you don't want to use the same preparation long term, because as you are treating yourself, your body is healing and changing. So you don't want to use the same preparation over and over and over for a long period of time, because your body needs something different. Ideally, you would have a new preparation every dose, but I have extended this to 7 doses, or 7 days, 1 week. So what I personally do is I will use this preparation daily for 1 week and then throw it away and start from scratch with a new preparation. Now, this is a centesimal, so you don't want to use the same preparation long term, or you can cause problems. If you're going to be using it daily, again, once a week, it has to be thrown away and redone from scratch. And between each dose, you want to succuss it again, just like we have done. And usually it's succussed 10 times between doses. But you homeopaths, since this is a video for practitioners, you will have to tell your client how many times you want them to succuss it between doses. And then when you're not using it, I like to wrap it in foil and then put it in a dark, dry, clean, odor-free space, like my bedroom closet. And that is how I do a Fincke dilution for autopathic preparations. Now let's talk a little bit about homeopathic preparations. If you have a homeopathic remedy and you want to increase the potency of that remedy, say you are starting with a 30C and you want to increase it to a 1M because you don't have 1M but you need 1M, then you would take the same kind of vial and you would put 2 or 3 pellets of the 30C remedy into that vial, fill it with distilled water, let it dissolve, shake it up a bit, and then succuss it, usually 10 times, and then proceed with the Fincke dilution to whatever potency you want. So if you wanted to take a 30C to a 1M, then you would leave the vial under the stream of water for just under 12 minutes because you're starting with a 30C. So just a little under 12 minutes, and everything else is the same. And so now that 30C would be a 1M. But everything else is exactly the same as the autopathic preparation. Now with the homeopathic preparation, because we're using Everclear, it's 1/5 specimen, 4/5 Everclear. If you have inert pellets in a vial and you want to medicate those pellets, then you would put 1 drop of your new potency. In this example, we're using a 1M. We raised it from 30C to 1M. You would put 1 drop into the vial of unmedicated pellets, and then you would shake it up really good to try to get that 1 drop onto all the pellets and give them all medicated. And then you would do that again, put another drop, and then shake it up really good. And now those pellets are medicated with your 1M potency that you made from the 30C potency. And Everclear because it's 95% grain alcohol, and it's important to use grain alcohol, not methyl alcohol, because that is poisonous. So it's important to use Everclear. And so now you raised an original 30C to 1M, and you have now medicated new pellets with that 1M potency. So now you have a whole new vial of 1M potency of that remedy. So that is as detailed a description of the Fincke method as I can think to do. I'm sure I missed some things, and I may have even said some things or done some things that other homeopaths might disagree with, or say, oh, I don't think I want to do it that way. I think I will do it this way. And that is certainly fine. The Fincke method, even though it's been around since the 1850s, it really has not been used and practiced very much. And so it is kind of a new thing that is coming back. And so I just wanted to make this video for homeopaths to watch and see if there's anything about this method that they can use in their own practice. Thanks for watching, and hopefully it was helpful.